Okay.
Alrighty.
So, Benny, why was Livonia's old outdoor warning sirens replaced in 2008 by West Shore Services? This is a question that some siren enthusiasts have been wondering, and I wanted to give them a very specific answer that I think you might be able to provide.
Alright, so in the 1980s, Livonia got a new system of electronic sirens, mostly Wheel and 3016s, and EOW 612, and a couple other sirens. While electronic sirens proved to be a little bit less reliable than electromechanical, and so many of them have been proven to be water damaged, and the system that remotely set them off was not really reliable. It tended to break down, lose connection, not work, that kind of thing. So the police department got fed up with having an unreliable system, and so in 2008, they upgraded not only the sirens themselves, but the system that was used to set them off. So now it's all set off using computers instead of analog boards.
So, what were the analog boards like compared to the computers?
So the analog boards looked very 1990s, right? It was a board with all the buttons that set off whatever tones, be it wail, steady, pulse, all that stuff. And the board was made by Federal Signal. It had the big Federal Signal logo on it. They still have it in the police department. It's just behind the computers, just in case their computer system were to fail. So it's still there. It's just as backup.
I see. So look, how do you think these new systems are compared to the old ones? Are they any better, or?
This new system has proven itself to be a lot better than the old system. They now have more sirens in Livonia, cover a lot bigger area. They are a lot more reliable, they're a lot more recognizable, and inside the police department, their system has yet to fail. It's working a lot better, and I don't see it being replaced anytime soon.
Yeah, because I've noticed that their new system seems to be like efficient enough to where they would it could actually tell if a siren fails or not. Were they able to identify that when they had the old system?
They were easily able to identify it. So, actually, no, I take it back. They weren't able to. On many occasions, they didn't even know whether the sirens were going off or not because there weren't any sirens close enough to the police department. Pardon, that was a wasp. Let's start again. So, Livonia's police department, they were not able to tell whether the sirens were going off or not easily. Mainly because there were no sirens close enough to the police department for them to hear them go off. And the system tended to fail a lot, and the sirens would not receive the signal to go off. So therefore they wouldn't know whether or not the system was working or not. So they decided to just do away with everything, the sirens, the controllers, and the system within the police department altogether, and just start completely new.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there actually was, I did want to quote, was actually one siren that was close by, but, which was the 2001, that was by the fire station, which I believe is the one that's relocated to a different position in Livonia. That one was close by, so they could tell if that was going off, because it's like just a couple 100 feet away from them. But even so, I'm sure in reality it wouldn't prove if all the other sirens went off, because maybe some went off and some didn't, right?
Yeah, well, the police department number 1 is what activates the sirens, and the nearest siren to them is at the rec center, and that's part of the new system. And even then, they couldn't hear that one too well because the room is in the central part of the building. It's in the middle of a whole hallway and room system, so you can't hear any sirens from out there, at least until the new modulator was put up. Now you can hear them. And so now the system is more reliable than ever before, and the police department is very satisfied with it. At least until they start putting voice back into the sirens.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very satisfied too, because actually, what I wanted to say is, when I found out our old sirens were going to be replaced, I kind of was, I sort of lost it, because I kind of felt that the new sirens that they were going to put up only because many people kept bad mouthing about mostly about Federal Signal 2001s of how crappy they sound, or just the fact that it has a lame sound to it, or some people may think it's just a failure. I kind of felt that we were going to be following that footsteps, but actually that turned out to be completely false. So, what do you have to say to those kind of people that think of that way?
To people who think that 2001s are complete and utter crap. So, what I have to say to them is that 2001s are blueprint evolutions of Thunderbolts. The only difference is the sound. And if they have been proven to be better than Thunderbolts, being less to maintain, easier to maintain, and cover a larger surface, at least in the city, then what's so wrong with that? I mean, if you don't like the way it sounds, well, so what? That's just how it is.
That's true. I mean, technically, for Livonia itself, they got more sirens than they've ever had before, and it's most likely they even had more than what they had when they had their old Thunderbolts. But it's also unclear of how many Thunderbolts they had. But do you know, like, do you think 2001s in general would be louder than like dual tone sirens, or easier on the ears at all? Some people think that dual tone sirens are easier on the ears than single tone sirens.
Well, that's a question I'm not exactly sure about. I personally think that dual tone sirens are better on the ear. They're a lot eerier sounding. They sound more like the sirens from World War II. And it's more recognizable as a scary tone thinking, hey, some bad stuff is about to go down. So I think dual tone sirens are a little bit better, but I mean, if 2001s are so mass-produced like they are today, and they're doing such a good job of what they do, then I suppose single-tone sirens are just as good.
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of times that Sheldon Park 612 happened to be there were a couple times where it failed to sound off, and what caused like the interruption of the signal, if you happen to know, like.
I believe the cause for the Sheldon Park 612 to not exactly go off every time is because of the previous unreliable analog system. I'm not like an expert on the whole siren system, the set-off system in Livonia, how it works, but like I said, the signals weren't always sent to the sirens. They didn't always receive the signal to go off. So that might have been the reason why.
Did West Shore Services themselves actually like add any like better technology in the police department itself, like for the computers and such, like what they have today, or did they do it themselves?
Now West Shore, they did the boxes on the siren themselves, the cabinets or whatever. Now I believe that the police department, the Livonia department, they are the ones that sort of set up the whole system that activates them, and they have some technician that connects the system to the sirens, I think. I'm not too big an expert on that, but that's my understanding of it.
Did Livonia, did the police department, like, did they get the new computers, or how do they actually get it to where it finally works compared to, like, you know, like what did they do?
Now that I really don't know. That is a question for the police department, which I do not have at the moment.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't want to tell you because it's probably, I don't know if I should say confidential information.
It's not exactly confidential. It's just not very well known.
No, okay. Well, at least they made the right step, because I did want to say that not just for outdoor warning sirens in Livonia, but Livonia Police Department itself, they're known to be like really good at like doing their jobs, and they try to keep the city safe, the community, and they usually seem to be up to date with their patrol cruisers, because they seem like they got like 2015 or newer cruisers that are like Dodge Chargers or Explorers or Tahoes or whichever kind of vehicles they prefer, or even the Tauruses, and they seems like they got the kind of technology that is needed for the job in order to do compared to what it used to be, like let's say 10 years ago and such. So I'd say they're doing really well.
I've seen their system from inside. Now, a lot of it is confidential, and I cannot say in the interview. But they have a very, very up-to-date system.
A lot of it's what again?
Confidential.
Confidential, okay, yeah. Yeah, they do, I've never been inside. I've actually only been inside the police station like twice, but only in the lobby. I've never been in the back like you have, but is there anything else you could share about the inside of the police station at all? That's interesting.
Aside from what I've shown in my video of it, there's not really much I can say about it publicly.
Right. I don't want to say there were actually some sirens in Livonia that, as you may have known, the rotating speed of like the old Whelans, they were pretty slow compared to like the 2001s. So of course, there's another proof right there that 2001s in general, they're meant to have a better. They're supposed to be better as a more reliable outdoor warning siren, and. Even though the sound is not like the best, but I would definitely take it over like an ATI or any other kind of high-pitched electronic siren that...
Any siren on the market beats ATI.
Yeah, but now, why was it that Livonia chose Federal Signal instead of American Signal?
Well, I'm not exactly too sure why Federal Signal was chosen over American Signal. American Signal does have a good reputation. They do have good sirens, but perhaps it's probably all about the money. Maybe Federal Signal's cheaper, maybe they're more efficient. I'm not too sure. But every decision ever made is meant for whatever saves the most money.
Yeah. Now, YouTubers, when you heard that question I just asked, there's some of you may actually know why Federal Signal happens to have a better way of choosing sirens compared to American Signal, because actually, this is just a little off the topic. In Hawaii, there are some I-forces in Hawaii that, of course, was all from American Signal that have been changed using Federal Signal Ultra Voice controls, so which proved to be more reliable on a certain kind of aspect or whatever it is, but I'm not exactly sure why or what the deal is, but if you happen to have any better information or you could describe how we are right now, please say it in the comment description. Is there anything else you want to add at all? Any questions?
Not too in particular, but I would like to give a little anecdote about the preservation of the 612 and the preservation of the other sirens. So, just for the sake of continuing the story you were telling earlier. So, starting out in hearing the sirens in Livonia, I always thought it was interesting hearing, I'd always go to the nearest window when the sirens went off first Saturday of the month when I was younger, but I never actually wanted to be up close to one. And one day, just by sheer chance, I was, and it was just so loud that it frightened me quite a bit. And after that, I was deathly afraid of sirens. Not just the way they sound, but just the way someone looked terrified me. As I say that, an emergency call happened.
What a coincidence. But what was the first siren you've heard in Livonia that you noticed?
So the first siren, now, I'm not too sure. Hearing sirens has been a thing ever since I moved here when I was a year old. So I'm not too exactly sure when the first time I heard them was, but I do remember just hearing them. And I thought it was kind of eerie, but I thought it was kind of cool. And the first siren I ever heard in person was the one by the fire department up this way, which I believe is the number 3 fire department.
You talk the one on Farmington Road?
Yeah.
That's the headquarters station.
That station. The siren there was the first siren I ever heard, and the first siren I ever recorded. And that one I heard by complete chance when I was.
You talking about the headquarters station, right? Not the one on 7 Mile.
I think it's the headquarters station.
Well, you're talking about the one that's next to the police station.
No,
right?
oh no, sorry. I'm talking about the one in 7 Mile.
Okay, yeah, that's not the headquarters. That's just the new fire station. So
Yes, yeah.
that was the first one you heard in person.
Yeah, the fire station there is the first one I've ever heard in person.
Well, that's one of the current system, and that
Yeah.
actually was the first 2001 130 model I spotted in Livonia, as I've stated before. I never bothered to film that siren, but I know Calvin Mayer has filmed that siren, and I was with him when he filmed it. So I don't really feel it's necessary for me to have to take a video of that siren since we already got a good enough video of it. But
Yeah.
the first one I've heard, of course, was Emerson Middle School. But you never heard any of the old sirens at all?
Not that I remember now. I do remember one time around when I was in first grade. I remember hearing the sirens sounded a lot quieter, a lot different. And I know now that's because the system was replaced. Now I don't remember too greatly what they sounded like before, but I know they sounded different.
Yeah.
And later on, around when I was in middle school, 7th or 8th grade, sometime during the summer between them, is when I heard the sirens go off once, and I figured, you know what, I'm this far into my life, I'm like, 11, 12 years old, and I'm still afraid of sirens. I should have been over this by now. And so I started looking into them, and I thought, I wonder what Livonia has. And I searched up on YouTube what kind of sirens throughout Livonia, and I found Siren 1000T's video, various videos of Whelan's, and I remember very vividly the first siren video I ever watched was of the Sheldon Park 612.
Yeah.
And I thought, hey, that's pretty scary that that's in my town. That's the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. So the next video I watched was the installment video.
That must have really made you feel disappointed.
Oh, that was very disappointing.
I'm sorry.
So later on, trying to get over my fear of sirens, later on when I was getting over my fear of sirens, I started to find it interesting how exactly it made sound, how it all worked, and how many different kinds there were. And so I thought, hey, this is pretty cool. And all my life being a tinkerer, I'd been interested in mechanics and electronics and things like that. And I think around 2014 or 2013 is when I found out that it's legal to own sirens. And so that's when I started looking up sirens on eBay and other things. And I saw a video of someone walking around the West Shore showing off what they had. And I thought, hey, maybe this is the way to go. And what do you know, the guy who did that's right in front of me right now.
Yeah.
So I contacted West Shore and asked, and I started with asking them, what's it like owning a siren? Is this legal? How does this work? And eventually it led into how much should I pay for a Thunderbolt 1000T? And eventually the deal was signed, and I brought home my first Thunderbolt in 2014. It was a Thunderbolt 1000B. Thunderbolt 1000B, which I've since traded back to West Shore, but parts of it are still behind me right now. And after that, it was too mechanically bad to work on. It was too damaged, it was filthy, it was never going to work again. So I traded in for another 1000B, which is currently behind us right now. And after that, I started getting more sirens. I was thinking, just this one, there's got to be more out there. I could have more than this. So I got interested I got my first Model 5 in 2016. And I found out the Model 5 was not going to work. It was too heavy. It was too, it was chunky to move around. But most importantly, it was 3-phase, and I couldn't maintain a 3-phase, didn't have 3-phase power. So I started looking, thinking, well, what should I do now? And I remember seeing one particular siren laying in the dirt, and that's this thing here, the Sheldon Park 612.
Yeah.
And I got an idea. I thought, what if I traded my siren for the Sheldon Park 612? So I talked to West Shore about it. The deal was signed. And I went back there, and I gave them back my Model 5 and a good deal of green stuff. And that's when they loaded the Sheldon Park siren into my truck. And we took it home. First, we stopped at Sheldon Park, but then we took it home.
Yeah.
And it was my fastest siren restoration ever. It took about 7 months. There's still a couple cosmetic things to work on, like the steel bars that go between the horns.
Yeah.
I took the screens off, and they're going to go back on.
Yep.
I might leave them off. I like the way it looks.
Yeah, it looks fine.
But I might put it back on.
Yeah.
But most importantly, internally, it's working again. And this is a huge piece of Livonia history being preserved. Because, the video of it is one of the most viewed siren videos on the internet. And the most viewed video of Livonia on the internet.
Yeah, it appears so. I mean, some people may think that the video's fake, but actually, what they don't realize is that alternate whale is actually a real signal. It's not, it wasn't just made up by, like, Windows Movie Maker or a special video editing software that made it sound funky just so I could get a lot of views, because that simply was not the point. That's actually what the real signal sounded like in person, and it really did sound intimidating as well. But yeah, I mean, it's, some people to this day still don't understand alternate whale signal, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of what else to describe here, but
After I got this siren, and I just sort of had it in my backyard for a while, setting it off on just for fun. It was shortly after that a YouTuber started commenting between me and Siren 1000T's videos, and it was right after that he started looking into my videos, and he found out that I preserved the siren. And it was after that we connected through Facebook, and we started talking, and we've been pretty close friends ever since.
and we still are. My only siren friend I know of in Livonia.
There's a couple siren guys around the Michigan area, but none else in Livonia.
There might
That
be.
we know of.
I think there is one, but that we met at the modulator. But
He was from Canton, wasn't he?
no, I thought he was from Livonia, but actually I don't remember. But yeah, I mean that's all I can think of. I'm sorry if this video's gotten too long, but I felt this was a pretty important topic. So.
You don't plan on editing this?
Huh?
Are you going to edit this?
I'm not too sure, but I think I'll just leave it up to you for that since you're the expert on it. But
Okay.
well, that's it, folks. Take care.